Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. O my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, not let my enemies triumph over me. Yea, let none that wait on thee be ashamed. Yea, let none that wait on thee be ashamed. Oh my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me. Remember not the sins of my youth. Remember not the sins of my youth. Oh my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid, think I've lost my way, still you're there right beside me. And nothing will I fear, as long as you are near. Please be near me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, singing Alleluia, Alleluia. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you, singing Alleluia, Alleluia. Men shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, singing Alleluia, Alleluia. Every time I kneel to pray, I open up my heart to my Lord. sweet embrace of my Lord. But I don't know why so many things seem to get in the way of seeing my God's glory. But I try every day to see and to thank Him for all the things He's given me. Every time I watch a storm, I know the awesome power of my Lord. Time I see a child, I see the gentleness of my Lord. I see the gentleness of my Lord. But I don't know why so many things seem to get in the way of seeing my God's glory. But I try every day to see and to thank Him for all the things He's given me. Every time I see the cross, our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God.
Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying your week so far here at camp. I know things are kind of a little weird with how everything's going, but hopefully it's working out well for you guys. I know it's, again, not like we planned it to, but hopefully we can reconvene again next year. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Micah, and I am one of the other directors for 5th and 6th grade week, along with Jason Schad. He's the guy that did the previous one to this for Monday night. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to watch that as well. He does a great job, and I'm sure there's some information there that'll be nice to listen to. But with that being said, things I know this year have been absolutely insane, and it seems like things have started to move very, very fast. I know you guys were in school and things were going well, and then boom, all of a sudden, coronavirus is here, and school's canceled. And I know, like, you can no longer go to restaurants anymore. You're used to going out to eat with your folks or with your friends, and like you can't do that anymore because of this coronavirus. And so restaurants were closing fast, and then we were required to have to wear our masks fast and make sure we're social distancing fast. And it's just been like this big, massive hurricane whirlwind going on, so to speak. And everything's just like, my goodness, like it's just it's all happening just so fast. And in a way, like that's how we are. Like that's how we are as a society. So I mean, for me in particular, one of the things that I have going on right now, Alana and myself, that's my wife. You know, we have our lives moving fast too. We've gotten a house, and my son's on the way, our first kid, so we're pretty excited about that. And I've started a new job recently, so we got all these just brand new things, and everything's just moving, like I said, very, very quickly. But we live in a society where that's where we want. Like, we have fast food restaurants. We want something to eat, we could just go out and get it. And we have microwaves, so we can just microwave things. We don't have to wait to cook it. You can just microwave it. And we have all these things, fast cars and the ability to use internet and all these things that just make life so fast. But then coronavirus came in, and it started to slow things down. It's stuff that we're not used to. Some of you guys may be racing fans. Some of you guys may not be. But there was a guy, it was earlier this year, I believe, and he was racing in the Daytona 500. And as you know, those cars go very fast. NASCARs, on average, go 200 miles an hour. And on this particular race, he was on the very last lap. And they're all moving very fast. They're all trying to finish. So they're trying to switch positions and all that kind of stuff. And this big wreck happened. And this particular driver, his name is Ryan Newman, ends up getting into this horrific car accident. And it was one of the worst ones that's happened in a really, really long time. And they're talking to him, and he said, you know, things just, they happen so fast that I really don't remember what happened. It was fast. So things in our lives seem to happen fast, and a lot of times it doesn't slow down for us until we have something major happen in our lives, whether that's coronavirus, or whether that's having a big wreck, or whether that's a loss in our family, or you know, whatever it is. A lot of times it takes something big like that to slow us down and to really zone in and focus on everything that's going on around us. So I hope so far, if you guys haven't yet, that you can tune in and listen to Jason. He talked about Peter on Monday night, and he kind of talked about some of the storms that he dealt with in his life. And tonight, I'm going to dive in, and we're going to talk about a man named Elijah and some of the storms that he faced. So if we start off in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 29, is where our story is going to take place. And we read about this king at the time. His name is King Ahab. And King Ahab is this horrible king. He's a very sinful man, involved in all kinds of things that he shouldn't be, and just kind of rotten. In fact, they're saying that he was even more sinful than any of the Israel kings before him. He's just a bad person. About that time, this is when Elijah enters the picture. Elijah walks into King Ahab, and he boldly tells him, he says, my God is the real God, and as long as he lives, as long as the God of Israel lives in this land, you will not see a drop of rain, and you will not even see dew on the grass. There will be a massive drought, which can be devastating for crops and everything else. And he's saying there won't be any rain at all. So as you can imagine, you know, this made Ahab like very mad. He's a bad guy already, and now you're coming in and you're telling him that because of this that you know he's not going to have, you know, any water or anything like that, and his land's going to just not flourish. So he was upset, and so God told Elijah, came and spoke to him, and God speaking to Elijah says, Elijah, you got to run, you're going to hide. And Elijah was facing the storm. He's facing the storm of, I got to get out of here because I got somebody coming to kill me now. So I'm running for my life. I'm hiding for my life. And along the way, you might imagine that you're running from something and you're going, what am I going to eat? What am I going to do? Where am I going to stay? And that's what's really neat about Elijah. He kept his faith during this whole time, and Elijah had God provide for him. He was able to bed down by a river, maybe not a river. It was a body of water, but he was able to set up kind of a camp there. And God brought ravens in to provide for him. They would bring him food in the mornings, and they would just make sure that Elijah had enough to eat. That alone is insane enough to think about, having like birds bringing your own food and providing for you. But God took care of them, and they'd bring him meat and they'd bring him bread through these ravens in the brook that he was staying by. But again, that got to the point where God's telling Elijah, hey, you got to get up, you got to move again. And for a lot of us, we'd be like, why? You're providing for us here. Like, we can stay here. But God says, move. And Elijah gets up and he moves. And God's telling him, there's going to be a widow that you come to meet. And this widow is going to take care of you, and she'll provide for you now. So Elijah does what he's told, and he goes and he runs into this widow, and this widow, meets him and stuff, and Elijah's telling her how he needs some food, he needs some water, he's thirsty, he just went a long way, a really, really long time, and so he's starving, and this widow says, I don't have anything. She says, I have a very little bit of oil and I have a little bit of flour, and that's it. That's all I have. And Elijah tells her, you go back, and if you make me a cake or a biscuit, so to speak, just like a little pastry type deal, you make me something to eat, I promise you God will provide for you. God will make sure that you never run dry, that you'll have enough for your family, and everything will be good. And so this woman listened, and she had her faith in Elijah, and Elijah had his faith in God, and they just all trusted each other, and that's how it worked. And she didn't run out of food, and they flourished and everything, and they never ran out of oil, nor did she ever run out of flour. And just as that happened, though, there's a storm that came into this lady's life. A bad storm. What would be devastating to a lot of us is she had a loss, and it wasn't just a loss in her family. That it was the loss of her son, somebody that she was extremely close to, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm having my son on the way. I couldn't imagine losing him, and he's not even here yet. But yeah, I can't imagine losing my son, and that's what happened. And she was upset and began to accuse Elijah, and she said, "What have I to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son?" So she's saying, why did you come here to take my son's life? So she was putting this blame on Elijah. And Elijah didn't blame God, but instead he went up to the boy. He threw his body on top of him 3 different times and just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And the son was revived, and he was able to walk him back down to his mother and in his arms, and hand her over her son, and just be able to show her that, God can provide for us even in these storms, even whenever the things look the worst. He'll be there for us. He'll be able they give us the nutrients, and he'll be able to give us the life that we need. But if we continue, we can jump right on down to chapter 18 of Kings, 1 Kings. In chapter 18, verse 19, we read of how Elijah comes and he confronts Ahab again. Now, if you remember, Ahab was a guy earlier we were talking about, where he came to him and he said, hey, you're going to have this drought. And now God's saying, Elijah, you got to go back to Ahab. So he does, and he's talking to Ahab, and he says, there's not one holy person here. Like, you guys are worshiping Baal, and then you have the prophets of Asherah, and at that point there was 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Asherah, and then there was Elijah and the prophet of God. And he basically says, hey, you guys come with me. We're going to go to Mount Carmel. We're going to have a showdown. And so what he put in front of him, he says, we're going to have two altars. And on one altar, you guys are going to have it, and then the other altar is going to be me. And we're going to bring two bulls. You guys get a bull, and I get a bull. We're going to cut them up. We're going to lay them on top of our altars. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call out to our gods. And we're going to say, bring us fire like this altar. You know, you are God. Do this because you are powerful. And so these guys agree to it. And they say, okay, fine. And Elijah says, well, you guys have more people, so you go first. So these guys start up, and they're cutting up their meat, and they're crying out to Baal, and, you know, really just wanting things to happen, and nothing's happening, nothing at all. And it's noon and stuff, and they've been praying all day and crying out all day, and nothing's happening, and they start to cut themselves, thinking if they cut themselves and they shed blood for Baal, he's going to do this stuff for him. And Elijah begins to mock them and saying, you know, maybe you're not doing stuff right, and things like that, and just starts to really mess with them. And it ends up never happening. And then Elijah's turn comes around, and Elijah ends up saying, here's what I want you to do. He says, well, first off, his altar at that point is destroyed. So he takes 12 stones to represent the 12 tribes of Jacob and rebuilds this altar to God. And he cuts up his bull and lays it on top. He digs a big trench around his altar. And then he has those people go out and fill 4 buckets of water, 4 big buckets of water. And he says, I want you to douse, just dump all that water right on top of my altar. So they do it. And Elijah says, do it again. So they go and they fill up the 4 buckets again, and they do it again the second time. And then he says, that's not good enough, do it again. So they go back out and they fill them up again, and they dump them on the altar again for a 3rd time. By this point, his altar is soaking wet, and the trench around it is full of water. And it just looks like, well, you know, clearly this isn't going to happen. Everything's wet. Everybody knows water doesn't light on fire. So Elijah begins to just call out to God. And all of a sudden, boom, Elijah gets this fire that comes down from above and lights his altar on fire and just absolutely devours everything. And it happened fast. And that's kind of the amazing thing about God and about how we deal with stuff in our lives and everything. Like, we may face these gigantic storms, we may face these hurdles in our lives and all these unfortunate circumstances, but if we put our faith in God and if we can trust in him the way Elijah did, he'll see us through it. And that's going to be the end for my lesson, but I encourage you to continue reading about him. There's some really cool things that happen with Elijah. In particular, he's one of only 2 people in the Bible to have something happen. So I won't say what that is, but if you want to go ahead and read, maybe you can figure that out. And on top of that, he at some point gets almost like this flash superhuman speed. So he's kind of a really cool really cool prophet to read about, and I encourage you guys to continue to do so. But that's all that I have for now, and I hope you enjoyed my lesson, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. But I'll see you around. Bye-bye.